Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. And today I am going to put across the case for quality over quantity or cheap when it comes to the way that you build your wardrobe. Because I think when it comes to the sartorial journey, there is always a temptation to save money, isn't there? There's always, in this modern world of volume manufacturers, there's always going to be something a little cheaper out there. And let me tell you, it isn't always, or shall I be more honest, it's rarely the best choice to take when it comes to curating your wardrobe. Because I think the intentionally well-dressed man instinctively will know that investing in higher quality clothing will have the returns that you look for with regards to style, longevity and everything else which will come along with those investments. Because even though quality items tend to have higher upfront costs from the very beginning, what you reap in the long term are by far better results from those investments. So today I've just got three good reasons for you, three arguments why I think it's worth spending a little bit more money when you're building that collection of clothing, particularly those flagship items that you intend to wear quite often and that are going to be visually, demonstratively more valuable for you as a well-curated, well-dressed man. Why I think spending more is perhaps a more sensible investment. Now, the first reason why I will always chase quality items when I have the ability to do so is the superior materials and fabrics which you will find in the items that you're buying, which you will get with quality items. Because traditional manufacturers, well, they go to extreme lengths to make sure that the materials in their garments, in their accessories, are of the very highest standing, and they've been curated from the far corners of the globe to make sure that you, the end user, get a very special experience. I've got three sort of examples of this for you. First of all, let's talk about the hands. Gloves. Now, there is a brand called Dent's gloves here in the UK. They hold the royal warrant. They've been running since I think 1777. Right, so owned by the same family, they're an incredible manufacturer. And the reason they have this rock solid reputation is particularly one type of glove, and it's the peccary leather glove which Dents provides for people. Now, peccary is the most luxurious and an incredibly scarce leather. Dents, over many decades of producing these products, have got to know where to get peccary leather from. Now, peccary leather actually comes from a wild peccary hog which lives exclusively in South America, and it can only be harvested from its natural environment by indigenous people with certain licenses and hunting privileges. So it's very, very scarce. It's very special. It's thicker than normal leather, but it has a reputation, as well as being sort of robust, of being very supple. And although I don't own a pair of peccary leather gloves, I've handled them, I've been to the Dents factory, this peccary leather is remarkable. And Dents have got this heritage of craftspeople, generations long, who have become expert at using that leather. So quality buys you something really quite unique when it comes to special leather. At the other end of the spectrum, an accessory that you place on your feet, as they say, where the rubber meets the road. Now, Trickers, royal warrant holders, I had the privilege of visiting the Trickers factory in 2024, and we went up at the very top of the factory. They have their leather library, where there's a guy, a leather librarian, whose job it is to curate all the leathers, choose the best bits for the shoes that are being manufactured. Now, they showed us this leather which comes from the Kudu antelope, which is an antelope which lives on the plains of Africa, and they use that leather to make certain shoes and boots in their collection. Now, the remarkable thing about the Kudu leather, and why Trickers have gone to the great extent of buying it in, sourcing it, and making sure that it's available in their footwear. Now, this kudu antelope, its habit is to feed amongst very thorny vegetation. I think it provides natural protection for it when it's eating, something of that nature. But one of the side consequences of this kudu antelope's feeding characteristics is that its hide gets often scratched and scarred by the thorns in which it feeds. So each hide of the kudu antelope, which comes into use when it comes to manufacturing shoes, is scarred and marked in a unique and special way. So no two boots are ever going to look the same. You can imagine the difficulty in working with leather like that and sourcing it and making its use in footwear. But this is what a company like Trickers does, because it knows the boots that you're buying are unique, special, could never be replicated. It's a very, very, special process. Now let's look at another garment that you could buy. Maybe you might consider it something quite simple. You don't even think about the shirt that you put on. But let's talk about Turnbull and Asser, Royal Warrant Holder, another one today. We're meeting them all. And they've been making shirts for the great and the good for many, many years. I think they justifiably have the reputation of being probably the world's premium shirt maker. Bespoke shirts, off-the-rack shirts, made to measure, they do it all. But their shirts, well, you've got a lot of choice when you walk in there. There are 14 different blends of material that you can specify in the shirt that you would like to buy. And they've all got different characteristics, because you might like a shirt which is rather easy to iron, something quite simple. You might like a shirt which holds a crease particularly well. That is your personal preference. You might like a light and airy shirt because you're from a warm environment, or a darker, more flannel type shirt because you're in a cold environment. Or quite simply, you might like a shirt which is quite resistant to staining. You name it, they've got a shirt which meets your requirements and your characteristics, and they will create a shirt for you. Now, as I say, yes, the upfront costs are going to be more. But these smaller manufacturers, they have taken decades, maybe even over a century sometimes, working with producers of cottons, of leathers from all around the world to create this sort of library of raw materials that they can use to create the products that you are going to buy. Volume manufacturers, they don't care. They are purely chasing profit, and they will buy the cheapest that they can get away with. That is not the conversation which you have with quality manufacturers, and that is why you pay a little bit more money. Now, the next reason why I think quality makes sense, whether you're, maybe you don't have a lot of disposable income and you really need to save up for something, I think going quality is the route to go, because from the very beginning, when those garments have been made and those accessories, repairability and longevity is baked into the production process. Because so many of these garments, they are built for people who hate spending money, right? Even the wealthy, they hate spending money on things. That's why they're wealthy. And they like to have things which can be repaired, which can go on for year after year. I've got a few examples of how that's visible in the quality production world. So I'm going back to Trickers, the factory that I visited. Royal Warrant Holders, very high reputation as great makers of men's footwear. Now, when I was visiting there, they took us on the factory tour, and we saw where shoes go for factory refurbishment. Because when you buy quality pair of shoes, you can, when the time is right, send them back to the factory, and they will be repaired by people in the factory and returned to you. Now, people often say they come back like new, but you think, how many times can you have them repaired? How long can you keep a pair of shoes like that going? Is it worth the initial upfront investment? Well, on our factory tour, we walked past the refurbishment area, and the shoes were all lined up, waiting to be picked out by the craftspeople and repaired. And our guide pointed to a pair of shoes which were waiting to be repaired. They were, he said, at least 40 years old. He knew, because they were no longer in production and they hadn't been made at the factory for at least 40 years. So those shoes had been in constant use, being worn sent back to the factory, refurbished, sent back, worn out, sent back to the factory, and you're in this constant lifetime cycle where the shoes that you're buying, well, you need never wear them out because they can always be repaired and sent back to you. And actually, in the factory, the people who do the refurbishment, they are the most skilled people in that factory. So it's really great to be a part of that constant cycle of wearing and repairing. Goes on and on and on. Now, another garment, which I often wear, I love them, barber jackets. Royal warrant holders, right, again, but barber jackets, quite robust, quite tough, but they often get worn in the most challenging of situations. Outdoors in the hard weather, you know, brushing through thorns and bramble bushes. They take quite a hard life. I know, I've gone through a few pairs of during my lifetime. But you can send them back to the factory for a factory refurbishment. They can be re-waxed by the experts who do it at the beginning of that garment's life journey. If you've worn them out, maybe the zipper's busted, maybe some of the popper buttons have worn off, maybe, you know, you've frayed the cuff. When you send them back to the factory, they've got a list of all of the repairs they can do, very modestly priced. But the thing I love about it, the people who are carrying out the repairs are people who have invested their lives in the production of these garments. They are experts. They make them with love, right? They know all about these jackets and how to repair them because they've been involved in the life journey of jackets for their entire working lives. Again, that is what paying a little bit more for the quality actually buys you. And again, when we're talking about repairability, Dent's gloves, our friends from the last example, all right, even your gloves, you can send them back to the factory. There's a shopping list of repairs that you can have done. You can have the new lining fitted, you can have stitching repaired, you can have the buttons repaired. Again, modest price, and particularly when you're talking about very valuable assets like peccary leather that can last a human lifetime. It's great to know that your initial investment includes this ongoing refurbishment service, which you can access in the factory of origin for your garment, that factory that's been there for hundreds of years. You can go back there, get your items repaired, and they go on and on with the journey. Now, the final reason why I always advocate spending a little more, get quality if you can, is because besides the wonderful quality of the items themselves and the product, often created through many years of trial and error by the manufacturers, another thing which you benefit from is almost unbelievable customer service. Now, in volume manufacturers, you know, they're cranking out these garments, these accessories, often in factories thousands of miles away from the end users. They really don't care about customer service. They just want you to buy it and then buy another one when it wears out. They're not interested in longevity or repairability. For them, you know, the quicker they wear out, the quicker you're going to buy another one. And customer service is also something which falls victim to the quality of a service when you're buying from volume manufacturers. And this is what you really notice when you buy a quality item. I've got some examples for you. Loke shoes, Royal warrant holder, you guessed it, right? So Loke, pretty, I would say they're not the most prestigious of shoes that you can buy, but they have a reputation for making good quality shoes. Do you know what? I had a viewer wrote to me about 2 years ago. Viewer wrote to me and said that they bought a pair of Loke shoes from Loke's online store. And when the shoes turned up at home, they were disappointed that the colour, the tone of the leather was lighter than they thought it was. They'd sort of misinterpreted the images on the internet and they turned up somewhat lighter in the flesh. And the reason they were writing for me, they were asking, is it possible to re-dye these shoes? And I said, look, before we go down the route of dyeing them yourself, why don't you contact Loke customer service, see if there's anything they can do for you, let me know how you get on. About a month later, I had a follow-up email from this gentleman. He'd contacted Loke, explained the situation. Loke had said, go ahead, send those shoes into the factory. Now, they couldn't replace them one for one because he'd been wearing them for a little while. That's unreasonable, I think. But they said, send those shoes in, we'll see what we can do. He sent the shoes in, didn't know what they were going to do. A couple of weeks later, The shoes arrive back at his home, same shoes, but they had been totally stripped down and dyed a darker colour of brown by Loke themselves in the factory, and they'd sent those shoes back out to him. And the best thing, didn't charge him a penny, even for the shipping. It was all part of the customer service. Now, I'm sure they couldn't do that for everybody, but I think, isn't it remarkable that a brand took the time and the effort to satisfy the needs of that customer? And now that guy will go out into the world and tell everybody, as I am right now, of the remarkable service which Loke provided for him. And I'm going to take it to the nth degree. I'm going to tell you about some amazing customer service I received just recently. And it's about this jacket that I am wearing right here today. This jacket is made by a company called Gerteen. It is a British family-owned heritage company, gentlemen's outfitters, and they create jackets, trousers, a whole host of things. They're a great little brand, actually. But I didn't buy directly from Gerteen. I actually purchased this jacket second-hand from the Vinted platform, and I believe it cost £6, £6 British pounds. And it turned up, and it was absolutely glorious. Obviously quite a few years old, but you know, it can't hardly have ever been worn. It was without blemish, without any signs of outward wear whatsoever. However, when I put it on, I noticed there was a button missing. It's a 2-button jacket, and there was a button missing. So I thought, oh, ho-hum, you know, button, it's not a big problem. I mentioned it to my wife. She said, yep, just buy a couple of buttons and I'll swap them over for you. No problem. But I thought, before I'll do that, I will just drop an email to the Gerteen customer service line. So I typed an email, let them know exactly what happened. Just recently bought a jacket of yours second-hand. It looks amazing. I'm very impressed with it, but it's missing a button. I sent them a photograph of the existing button, a photograph of the jacket, and I said, by any chance, I know I'm just sticking my neck out there, but by any chance, do you have any spare buttons for this garment? Happy to pay for shipping, whatever, but you know, it would just save me having to buy 2 new ones if I can just get one from you. Customer service representative emailed me back and said, I'm terribly sorry, that garment hasn't been in production here for a number of years, and we don't have buttons for out of production garments obviously lying around. However, in the factory, we have a button box where we keep odds and sods of spare buttons that end up getting swept up. We put them in one place. I'll go and have a deep dive in the button box for you, and I'll see what I can do. I thought, oh, great, you know, how wonderful. So about 2 or 3 days later, I received an envelope through the post. I opened up the envelope, and there was a little note inside saying, found some buttons for you, hope they help. And what did I find inside? What had Gerteen done? They'd gone diving in their button box, and they had sent me a full set of vintage buttons. And you can tell they're vintage. The old labelling has got many years under its belt. And these buttons are for this jacket. Not only did they send me 1 button, they sent me a full set of 3 buttons and another set of buttons for the cuffs, should I wish to change them as well. Now that is customer service. Oh, and should I say, they didn't charge me a penny, even for the postage. This was a service extended by a remarkable company that appreciates customer service. And here I am, singing their praises to you. Go and have a look at the Gerteen website. That's the service you get if you choose to buy from them. And that, as I round up here, is really why I always will advocate quality over saving money. Even if it means going without something for a little while, whilst you accumulate the funds necessary to buy that quality item, it's going to pay you off in the quality of the materials, in the longevity that you get from it, and in the customer service that you get from that item provider. There we go. I've said my piece. And I've thanked Gerteen for their amazing customer service. But that is by no way an exception. I'm sure that happens all of the time. And that's what you pay for. There you go. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, don't forget to like it, subscribe for more. Ask me a question, drop me an email, love to hear from you. If you want to support the channel, you could buy me a coffee, one-off thing, or for a tiny monthly sum, you can join my Patreon community where you will benefit from additional videos that I make each week exclusively for my patrons and a personal dialogue with me. And if you'd like to get in on that, the link is in the show note below. I would love you to join us. So until the next time, quality counts. I'll see you soon.